Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wondered if we need religion to be good people? That's a question philosophers and thinkers have debated for ages, but new research reframes it in a really interesting way. This paper looks back at a big question they posed about a decade ago: is religion necessary for morality? And it says the answer is probably no, but that doesn't mean religion isn't important for how we act. So, what was the original question about? The researchers, Onurcan, Yilmaz, and Ozan framed it in three ways. First, phylogenetically, do animals like primates show early signs of moral behavior? Second, historically, how did religion shape our moral lives? And third, ontogenetically, how does growing up learning from others and doing rituals affect our sense of right and wrong? Now, after a lot of new studies over the past 10 years, they're saying the idea that we absolutely need religion to be moral just doesn't hold up. They found that early moral skills pop up in babies and even in animals before religion. And secular groups, those without religious beliefs, can also have strong moral codes and societies. But here is the twist, and this is the core of their new idea. Religion might not be the source of morality, but it seems to be a really good way to make our moral expectations more stable and predictable. Think about it like this: if everyone agrees on the rules and knows what the consequences will be, it makes living together much smoother. They call this moral consistency. It's not just about how often people do good things on average, but how reliably they stick to those moral rules, even when things change. So imagine you are playing a game. If everyone makes random moves, the game is chaotic. But if everyone knows the rules and generally sticks to them, the game becomes predictable and people can cooperate better. Religion, they suggest, acts like a set of rules and enforcement mechanisms that makes moral behavior more predictable. They explain that we have basic moral capacities like empathy and fairness that seem to be built into us. These aren't dependent on religion, but then we have these bigger moral ideas or moral ideologies, which are like cultural toolkits that help us organize these basic feelings into a shared system of rules for a whole group. Religion is one powerful way these toolkits have been built and shared over history. How does religion do this? The paper points to a few key ways. One is supernatural monitoring. This is the idea that believing in gods who watch us and might punish us if we do wrong makes us think twice before breaking rules. Even if the gods aren't real, the belief that they're watching can encourage more consistent behavior. Another big one is ritual synchrony. Think about singing in a choir, dancing, or even marching together. When people do things at the same time, it builds a strong sense of connection and unity within the group. This shared experience makes people more trusting and cooperative with each other. Then there is conformity and prestige. We tend to copy people who are popular or seem to know what they're doing. Religious groups often have strong norms, and if everyone is following them, and if respected leaders are promoting them, it makes it easier for everyone to fall in line. This reduces the chances of people acting in wildly different or unpredictable ways. Finally, meta-ethical objectivism. This basically means believing that moral rules are not just opinions, but have objectively right answers. When people feel that moral truths are absolute, they might be less likely to change their minds or bend the rules based on the situation. This can lead to more consistent moral judgments across different contexts. The key takeaway here is that instead of just measuring how much good people do on average, we should also look at how stable and predictable their moral behavior is. The research suggests that religion might be especially good at reducing the wiggle room in our moral decisions, making us act more consistently over time and across different situations, and perhaps more predictably within our groups. Now, the researchers are honest about the challenges in studying this. One big issue is that most studies just look at averages. They might report that religious people are X% more cooperative, but they might miss the signal that their behavior is just much more consistent. They also point out that it is hard to separate the effects of religious beliefs from religious practices. People who believe in a certain kind of God usually also engage in certain rituals, and these things feed into each other. Another challenge is making sure the findings are real and not just a fluke. Some studies use very simple priming techniques, like briefly showing people religious words, and the results of these can be hard to replicate across different groups. And a big one is that a lot of this research is done on people from Western educated, industrialized, rich and democratic societies, often called weird people. This means the findings might not apply to everyone everywhere. The researchers also caution against making super broad historical claims, like saying, religions created civilization. They think we need to look at the specific ways these religious mechanisms actually work, how they make behavior more stable, and then build up from there. So, their proposed new Hilbert agenda is to shift the focus. Instead of asking if religion is necessary for morality, they want us to ask when and how religious and secular institutions create stability and scale in our moral lives. They've come up with 7 big questions to guide future research. One is, do religious and secular institutions make moral behavior more stable and predictable compared to each other? Another asks how beliefs about gods watching us and the actual practice of rituals work together or separately. They also want to know if believing that morality is objective, meaning there are right and wrong answers, makes people more consistent. And can secular things like schools or government programs do what religion does in making moral behavior more predictable? Essentially, they're saying that while religion might not be the only way to have a moral society, it's been a very effective historical tool for making moral expectations consistent. This reframes the whole debate. It's not about whether we need religion to be moral, but about how different systems, religious or secular, help us all be more predictable and cooperative in our moral lives. It's a move from asking about necessity to understanding stability and scale in a much more nuanced way. The beauty of this research is that it moves beyond simple answers and dives into the how and when. It acknowledges that basic moral feelings are likely universal, but the cultural systems we build around them, like religions, play a powerful role in shaping how those feelings translate into consistent, predictable social behavior. One potential limitation from my perspective is that while they highlight the mechanisms like supernatural monitoring and ritual synchrony, it can still be tricky to isolate their exact effects in real-world settings. People are complex, and their behavior is influenced by so many things. However, by focusing on variance reduction and moral consistency, they've created a really useful framework for future research. What this means for us is that the institutions we live by, whether religious or secular, have a significant impact on how we navigate our moral lives. It suggests that for a stable and cooperative society, we need not just good intentions, but also strong, consistent frameworks that guide our actions. This research opens the door to exploring how secular alternatives might achieve similar stability, or how religious communities themselves can foster broader moral inclusion alongside their internal consistency. It's a fascinating direction for science, suggesting that understanding morality is not just about individual ethics, but also about the social technology of creating predictable, cooperative communities. What do you all think about this shift in perspective? Does it change how you view the role of religion or other institutions in shaping our morality? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for joining me here at RUBIN'S Mind Lab. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more explorations into the science of the mind, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next episode. Until then, stay curious.